Hi, I'm Numbert, and you're watching All Indie. Since this is our first episode of our new segment, I'd like to take a second to explain. All Indie is a new segment where typically myself, but sometimes the other members of the Battle Gamer News crew, will be reviewing, but mostly just discussing the latest and greatest in independent gaming. To start off, we're talking about an indie game called flOw that is available for the PC and PlayStation 3 network. The basic premise of flOw is that you start off as a small microscopic organism and you have to eat even smaller microscopic organisms in order to evolve and get larger and eat larger microscopic organisms. I'll start off by saying that flOw has a really cool art style and great music and is highly addictive, and I had a lot of fun playing it. But what's really sort of special about flOw is the thesis behind it, and that's dynamic difficulty. What dynamic difficulty is the idea that a player should be able to dynamically choose what their difficulty should be, instead of at the beginning of the game where you get a little menu screen where you have to go easy, medium, hard, or extremely painfully hard. You should be able to constantly reevaluate how hard you want the game to be. And flOw does that by, on any given plane of depth in the sea that you're swimming around in, there are red and blue orbs. If you hit the red orbs, you go deeper, and the challenge gets a little bit harder. The organisms are larger, have more potential to eat you, but also have greater rewards. If you eat the blue orbs, you'll go up higher in the depth, and things will get a little bit easier. The purpose of this is so that if you ever feel overwhelmed in flOw, you can eat the blue orbs, go up higher, train, and get larger and more prepared for the deeper levels. And if you ever feel like the game is getting too easy, you can simply skip a lot of stages, eat a bunch of red orbs in a row, and get into the deeper difficulty, depending on your skill set. I like the whole premise of dynamic difficulty, but I think what would have been even more interesting is if they would have eliminated the blue orbs entirely. It would have been far more interesting and tactical for the player to have to decide whether or not they are prepared to go on to the next stage. They could stay at a stage eating as much as they like, and then choose whether or not they're prepared to eat the red orb. And then it's sort of a decision of whether or not you're ready for the next thing. And if it's really easy, you might not even have to do anything on that stage. But if you thought the last stage was really difficult, you might want to spend a lot of time eating the smaller organisms, getting larger and more prepared for the next stage. And this would have been a sort of tactical choice for the player on whether or not they're ready to go. Unfortunately, flOw doesn't do that, and if you ever die in flOw, instead of ending the game or giving you some sort of real severe consequence as a punishment for not having adequately prepared for the level you're on, it simply takes you back a single level. And I really found that giving me sort of a no-consequence environment that I didn't really want. I wanted to make tactical decisions about when I was ready to move on to the next depth, but in the back of my head I always knew that even if I failed, I would not be severely punished, or really even punished at all. The game would simply take me back a level, and then I could try it again. And in the back of my head, I always sort of knew that I could always just go forward. So instead of making decisions about whether or not I should go forward, I always just went ahead and said, alright, I'll go for it, and if I fail, so what? So while I like the idea of dynamic difficulty, the execution in this game, instead of making me constantly reassess what my difficulty should be, was more throwing me into the harder difficulties, just so because I knew I wasn't going to have any real consequence anyway, so I might as well give it a go. Despite all of that, I can say flOw was a lot of fun, and as you get to the bottom, you do evolve into a new creature, so there's a lot of sort of exploration and getting larger and larger and larger and larger, and then becoming a new creature, and then doing it larger and larger and larger and larger, and becoming a new creature. I think there's like 5 or 6 creatures total, so you can really play this game for a lot of time, and I'd still highly recommend it, but I do wish the dynamic difficulty had been a little more thought-provoking than simply making it just easier all around. The game is free for the PC, so I'll put a link over there in the sidebar if you want to check it out, and it's also on the PlayStation Network for fairly cheap. Go check it out. Thanks.